Continuing with Paul, the hidden story behind the writing of Matthew, Mark, and Luke by William Joseph Cobble. An understanding of Paul's relationship with the members of Jesus' movement will assist in interpreting many of the compositional choices later made by Mark, Matthew, and Luke in the writing of their Gospels. Many of the dynamics that will be shown to exist in the synoptics will have their origins in the events surrounding Paul's association with Jesus' brother James, who led the Jerusalem Mother Church at the time of Paul's religious experience, and his relationship with Simon Peter, the most prominent of Jesus' apostles. Paul writes of seeing the post-crucifixion resurrected Jesus, but there is no record of him meeting or hearing Jesus prior to this. Therefore, it is through the figures of James and Peter that Paul most closely connects with the movement. Paul claims to be a first-person witness of the resurrected Jesus, yet he provides very few details about the event in his letters. Prior to the experience which led him to identify with Jesus' movement, Paul persecuted Christians in some capacity. Again, his letters give very few details, and what they say is not flattering. Quote, "I was violently persecuting the church of God and was trying to destroy it." Galatians 1:13. Paul's letter to his church in Galatia contains more ministry-related autobiographical details than all of his other writings combined. In it, he tells his readers that God had revealed his Son to me, also translated in me, but he did not confer with any human being and waited 3 years before going to Jerusalem to meet with the leaders of the movement. Quote, "Then after 3 years I did go up to Jerusalem to visit Cephas and stayed with him 15 days. But I did not see any other apostle except James, the Lord's brother." Galatians 1:18-19. Paul writes in Galatians that he made a second trip to Jerusalem 14 years later, quote, "in response to a revelation." By including this detail, Paul makes it clear that he was not summoned to Jerusalem by the leadership there, but went in obedience to a divine directive. It is unclear if Paul means that this journey occurred 14 years after his religious experience or 14 years after his first visit. On this second trip, Paul traveled with Barnabas and Titus. Acts says that Barnabas was the first member of the Jesus movement to befriend Paul after his religious experience. He would later bring Paul to Antioch to work with him in the church there. Antioch was the capital of Roman Syria and the third largest city by size and importance in the Roman Empire. Ultimately, the two would journey out from there together as missionary partners. According to Acts 15, the event that prompted Paul's second meeting in Jerusalem was that, quote, "certain individuals had come into the Antioch congregation and claimed that there was no salvation without circumcision." Acts 15:24 will identify these men as having come from the Jerusalem Mother Church, but denies that their actions were officially sanctioned. Paul's experience with the risen Jesus had revealed to him that Gentiles were not required to first convert to Judaism in order to become Christians. This included an exemption from circumcision for male converts. Paul's account of what prompted his second journey to Jerusalem is dour. In Galatians, he refers to the, quote, "certain individuals" as no less than, quote, "false believers" and spies who had secretly infiltrated the Antioch church with intentions of enslaving the congregation under the law of Moses. Quote, "Because of false believers secretly brought in who slipped in to spy on the freedom we have in Christ Jesus so that they might enslave us, we did not submit to them even for a moment, so that the truth of the gospel might always remain with you." Galatians 2:4-5. Acts provides further details showing a heated exchange between parties that necessitated an official ruling from the Jerusalem leadership. Quote, "And after Paul and Barnabas had no small dissension and debate with them, Paul and Barnabas and some of the others were appointed to go to Jerusalem." Acts 15:2. Why would a Jewish Christian believe that circumcision was required for Gentiles seeking to follow Jesus? Notice in the biblical passage below that when God first commands Abraham to circumcise himself and his offspring, Abraham is also commanded to circumcise his slaves, both those born in his house and those purchased, quote, "from any foreigner who is not of your offspring." Such a passage could support the belief that circumcision was a requirement for both Jews and Gentiles who desired to be part of God's covenant. God says, "every male among you," and that this is an everlasting covenant. This stark admonition, given directly by God, understandably left many Jewish believers unable to consider a religious life pleasing to God in which circumcision was no longer a requirement. Genesis 17, 10 through 14, long quote. God said to Abraham, "This is my covenant, which you shall keep between me and you and your offspring after you. Every male among you shall be circumcised. You shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. Throughout your generations, every male among you shall be circumcised when he is 8 days old, including the slave born in your house and the one bought with your money from any foreigner who is not of your offspring. So shall my covenant be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. Any uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin shall be cut off from his people, for he has broken my covenant." Again, that's Genesis chapter 17, verses 10 through 14. Contending with Paul.